Neemias Queta, 6 points in the Celtics' first win versus Utah. Jazz, stop everything and come with me now. In the Boston Celtics' first victory over the Utah Jazz, Neemias Queta scored 6 points. But what doesn't appear in the box score is what you'll want to see. If you follow the NBA or simply support a Portuguese player up there, this video is for you. In less than 30 seconds, I'll show you the move that lifted the bank, the detail that changed the momentum, and why these 6 points are worth more than they seem. Stay until the end. I promise you'll leave here prouder of Neemias. If you're a Celtics person to the end, give that like now and subscribe to the channel to keep the TD Garden energy here every day. Activate the bell so you don't miss any more Neemias moments and quick post-game analyses. Closed Green Nation? Let's continue. The next thing is pure Celtics pride. Sit here with me for a few minutes because today I want to tell you a story that goes far beyond the box score. It's about presence, about how, even when the number of points doesn't stand out to you, a player can change the mood of an entire team. On the night that the Boston Celtics won their first victory of the 2025-26 season, away from home, 122-90 against the New Orleans Pelicans, the headline could easily highlight the expanded scoreboard, the deep rotation, or the accurate shots from the perimeter. But there is a layer that makes this victory different, the silent, and at the same time thunderous, signature of Neemias Queta. You already know the score, you know it was an authoritative triumph. What perhaps not everyone noticed is the way in which a Portuguese center, starting again, stitched together the match at points of contact that don't usually become clips of the best moments. There were 6 points in 8 attempts, nothing that makes the narrative shake on its own. But the game is also written in the details that support the larger plot. 11 projections, and here it is worth making space. 7 of them offensive. 7 second chances ripped from the heart of the opposing goal, as if each ball recovered told his teammates, "Keep going, our attack is not over." In 22 minutes and 10 seconds, he also recorded 4 blocks, his best record so far this season, and committed just 3 fouls, playing with intensity and control. Think about it with me. When a player accumulates 7 offensive rebounds, he is not just collecting numbers, he is changing the geometry of the rival defense. Every second possession is a misalignment that wears out, disorganizes, and, little by little, creates a psychological valley on the other side. Does it never end? It's the type of contribution that gives morale to those who throw, because they know that if the ball doesn't fall, it can come back. And it gives comfort to the coach, who starts to see in his post a multiplier of possibilities, a silent epicenter of territorial dominance. Now, if you look at the history of this match just by points, you will find Anthony Simons coming off the bench with 25 and a hot hand, Peyton Pritchard adding 18, Luka Garza and Jaylen Brown with 16 and 15 respectively, Josh Minott also with 15, and Derek White reaching 11. It's a menu of scores distributed over 48 minutes, a sign that the attack flowed, that the ball flowed, that the movement without the ball found the right gaps. But notice the chain. When there are so many second chances, less obvious passing lines come into existence. When there are blocks and control in the internal defense, the Celtics are able to accelerate the transition, reverse the court, transform a good defense into a high-quality attack. And that's when you understand why the 6 points of Queta tell a bigger story than they seem. On the other side, the Pelicans felt the absence of Zion Williamson. Without the gravitational force of its star, the attack had to reinvent solutions. Jordan Poole took the lead with 22 points, looking for the game off the dribble and trying to keep the team alive in runs. But there was a lack of density in the middle of the court. There was a lack of that presence that threatens and doubles markings. On nights like this, the opposing defense takes a breather, closes the rim, and pushes shots into less efficient areas. And when the rival you face has a post that dominates the offensive glass, the price of deconcentration increases. The victory was the Celtics' first after 3 initial stumbles. At the final whistle, the table showed Boston in 13th place in the East, a position that does not match the ambition of the squad, but which, precisely for this reason, increases the symbolic value of this night. Winning well away from home, calibrating confidence and correcting rough edges has a weight that cold statistics don't always capture. And notice how the signs align. In a game that needed direction, the team finds multiple references: Simon's hand, collective discipline, dominance of the boards, and protection of the rim. In other words, a team that recognizes itself again. Let's take a second to breathe and talk about Neemias Queta with the care that the night brings. Third game in a row as a starter, delivering what defines his identity: physicality, reading time, commitment to the dirty detail, the box out, restraint in the pick and roll, the timing of the second jump. 4 blocks aren't just 4 balls returned to the ground. There are 4 messages sent to the opposing team: not here. And when the bottle closes, the other side's attack map becomes more predictable, more compressed, with hasty decisions and forced shots. It's the type of protection that doesn't usually appear in the thumbnail, but that creates victories in silence. If you watch the game thinking about rotations and fits, as any good basketball fan ends up doing, you can imagine what a performance like that means for the coaching staff. A post that delivers second possessions, that protects the rim without being flooded with fouls, and that fulfills its tactical role in handoffs and high blocks is an anchor, allows versatility. It allows aggressive guards like Pritchard and Simons to have corridors to attack. It allows wings like Brown and Minot to project with more confidence on the first pass. Not every pivot needs to touch the ball in the low post to make an impact. Sometimes the impact is the very structure he gives to the house. There is a mental aspect that I never fail to highlight when I talk about inner play. Whoever controls the rim imposes himself in 2 territories at the same time, on the scoreboard and in spirit. The opponent begins to hesitate. The second guess becomes more frequent. The kick pulse shortens. This is how an 8-0 run happens without even a 3-pointer. 4 defensive stops, 2 second possession attacks, and suddenly, the team that had its hand on the steering wheel loses control of the steering. And speaking of races, Lauri Markkanen's that same night was historic. The Utah Jazz haven't seen a player surpass the 50-point mark since Karl Malone in April 1998, when the postman delivered 56 against the Warriors. Markkanen scored 51 against the Suns at home in a 138-134 victory after overtime. Why does this matter in this conversation? Because the championship is also written by echoes. On one side, a Portuguese goalpost consolidating a role that gives completeness to his team. On the other, a Finnish power forward rewriting his franchise's record shelves. It's not just the score that moves, it's the narrative of a season that finds protagonists in various accents, styles, and geographies. Let's go back to New Orleans. The number that hooked me the most, I confess, was Queta's 7 offensive rebounds. Offensive rebound is a virtue of insistence, but also of reading. It's not enough to be strong. You need to know where the ball tends to fall, throwing angle, visual contact with the marker, perception of flight time. It's a symphony of micro-decisions in less than a second. Players who master this art tend to create permanent tension in the opponent's box. Defenders who think the box out was enough find themselves surprised by a second jump, by an arm that appears from behind, by a body that anticipates the ball falling. It is a torment and a balm for self-attack. I also want to invite you to look at something that few people talk about: absence management. A center who makes blocks and fights on every possession runs the risk of getting caught in quick infractions. It's the tightrope between aggressiveness and prudence. 3 fouls in more than 22 minutes with a high level of contestation show maturity. This keeps the game plan alive. The trainer does not need to reposition half a rotation in a hurry. Companions maintain their roles. Predictability in high-level sport, especially in defense, is gold. What about the Celtics offense? What can we say about a night where 6 players exceed 10 points? The word is rhythm. When the ball is not stuck in one hand, when the game of 2 turns into a game of 3, 4, 5 options, the opponent loses leverage. The presence of a pivot who knows where to put his body in the light traps and who threatens with the roll, even if he receives little, is the oil in this gear. The defender of the ball hesitates, the one on the block sinks too much, the pass finds the corner, and if the shot doesn't fall, there is the second possession to rebuild the play with the defense out of alignment. It's a layered attack. Of course, no one here is romanticizing it. There is a lot to adjust for the Celtics season to reach the ceiling that fans imagine. The start with 3 defeats prompts teams to recalibrate. coverage details in lateral blocks, communication in late exchanges, attention to 2-to-1 possessions at the end of the quarter. But victories like this, away from home and with a margin, allow the team to work on foundations of trust. Basketball, like any construction, requires structure before finishing. And on this night, the structure had a name and surname as it watched the rim and devoured the offensive glass. Allow me to focus on the human component of this narrative. Neemias Queta is not a character who parachuted into the NBA. There is a journey, there is evolution, there is a fight for minutes, there is an understanding of what each coach asks. Players who establish themselves in the best championship in the world outside the radar of immediate stardom usually do so through the sum of small deliveries, gaining contact in exactly half a second, touching the ball that will become a second possession, sprinting from one table to another to reach one step earlier. It's an ant's work with an avalanche impact. On nights like this, you see the harvest, and when the harvest appears, it contaminates the cast, in the best possible sense. It's contagious hustle, that energy that spreads. The winger who was previously hesitant to attack the closeout now goes with conviction. The point guard who thought twice before challenging the rim now knows that if the floater hits the iron, there is a teammate fighting for the remainder. The team starts moving to another song, and the opponent, without its reference star, needs to look for improvised solutions. The advantage grows not only on the scoreboard, but in the narrative of the match. You may be wondering, what about from now on? What does this performance say about Queta's role in the rotation? I venture a reading. Nights like New Orleans offer irrefutable proof of usefulness. They do not depend on whether the hand was calibrated or not. They depend on habits and reading, which are more stable. This gives the coach the peace of mind to project minutes with consistency, gives the squad the confidence that there is an anchor in the box, and gives the player himself the platform to evolve in complementary areas. Passing from the high post, short roll, finishing with a weak hand, small touches that open up the offensive range without compromising what is already differentiating. And there's another important message here. One game on a schedule, as long as the NBA's, is rarely defining, but some games are inaugural. They inaugurate states of mind, inaugurate versions of a team, inaugurate doors. The first victory after a difficult start could be exactly that kind of inauguration. And when that inaugural night bears the stamp of rim presence, defensive discipline, and second possession dominance, there's a promising roadmap on the horizon. Finally, I like to keep the conversation going by remembering that basketball is a text written by many hands. Anthony Simon's 25 units are vivid ink on this page, Pritchard's 18 and Brown and Minot's 15 give it flesh, Derek White's 11 build the balance paragraph. But it is the signature of the person who fixes the paper on the table and does not let the wind blow it away that makes reading possible. Tonight, Neemias Queta was that signature, without media noise, without pyrotechnics, with the kind of greatness that lives in the repetition of the right gesture. And looking at the season ahead, it is exactly this kind of greatness that usually sustains the best chapters. So, if you follow this sport with the pleasure of noticing what happens between one dribble and the next, save tonight. Keep the 7 offensive rebounds as a map of where the ball tends to land when confidence is high. Keep the forced dumps as a reminder that defensive discipline doesn't have to be dour. It can be vibrant. Also keep in mind that 6 points can mean a lot when everything around moves coherently. And above all, be sure that victories like this are not a coincidence. They are the effect of presences that sustain the team from within. While the league buzzes with historic performances like Markkanen's, while other narratives unfold on different courts, the New Orleans chapter serves as a window into what the Celtics can be when the pieces fall into place. A team that does not depend on a single savior, but on a constellation of well-executed tasks. A team that knows how to create, finish, compete, and recover. And a Portuguese center who, with 6 points and a pile of intangibles, helped usher in, who knows, the most conscious and powerful version of this team for 2025-26. If you've made it this far, you're invited to look at the next games with this filter. Who's keeping the house standing while fireworks light up the ceiling? Often it is the player who scored only 6 points. Often, it's the person who earned 7-second chances that change the course of an entire quarter. Often, it's the one who hits a block at the right time without getting caught in fouls to launch a counterattack that opens up the advantage. That night in New Orleans, this player had a name, an accent, and a discreet smile of someone who knows exactly what he delivered. And from here on, the season has a new reference to measure its own pulse. And that's it. If today we saw how 6 points can light up an entire team, imagine what happens when this pattern becomes habit. Do you want to follow every adjustment, every pick-and-roll reading, every detail that turns ordinary possession into a continuous advantage? So don't leave it for later. Join the playlist now, Celtics Analysis, here on the channel. That's where I break down games like this, compare rotations, explain defensive coverages without fluff, and show clearly where Boston is winning or losing the game within possessions. Press play, save the playlist, and follow me from game to game. If you want to understand the Celtics from the inside, this is your window into the season. Let's turn this switch together. Access Celtics Analyzes and dive into the next chapter now.